I'm mystified that the people that are in a minority group or a marginalized group went to MAGA to seek refuge, safety, and protection. And the dynamic that's playing out here is that sometimes people in marginalized groups, a lot of times, they have forgotten that they're connected to other marginalized groups. And so, in their desire to prioritize their group's needs, they themselves are engaging in the bigotry that they want to prevent from being happen to them. I'm going to give you an example of a person that does this. Of course, she's a complete nut. She should be in a mental institution. And naturally, she is the president's top shadow advisor. And of course, I'm talking about Laura Loomer. All right, go ahead and put this up. Laura Loomer tweets, "We love Trump, but we can all agree we need less Chinese and less Muslims in America. Most of those Chinese students are spies, and I've never met a Muslim who has been a net positive for America. I'll let you know if I find one." And Laura Loomer is a Jewish person who has sought safety for Jewish people in the MAGA movement, and she is one of hundreds of thousands that have done this. Mehdi Hassan replies the following. He puts in quotes, "I've never met a Jew who has been a net positive for America." Imagine if a top ally and advisor to Joe Biden had said that during his presidency. It would rightly have been the only story in the news, a huge weeks-long scandal, and Biden would have been forced to disown them. But not with Islamophobia. Our liberal media and Democrats have normalized and accepted Islamophobia from the right shamefully. And this is something that I think they're starting to find out. When you join a movement where the tent is that we welcome, if you're a Latino that wants us to dehumanize and separate other Latinos for their families, at some point those knives will be turned at your family. If you are a Jewish person that didn't notice all of the Nazi flags or the Nazi MSG rally, or the fact that Trump had dinner with Nick Fuentes and said that the people in Charlottesville, Jews will not replace us, and on and on. I could go on and on. And you're going to seek safety in these people. You have to realize at some point those knives are going to be turned at you. Laura Loomer has a very difficult time figuring that out. And the fact that she is so brazenly Islamophobic and that she gets so much cover from corporate media is just really appalling. And it makes me want to apologize to every American Muslim who has often seen that when they stand up for the bigotry against them, that it's not important, that it doesn't matter, that other forms of bigotry have priority over theirs. And I think the message that we try to embrace, that Pumps and I try to embrace, is that universal human rights are the only way that all of these things are connected, that none of us are safe until all of us are safe.
Well, and Laura Loomer, let's be very clear. She has a press credentials at the Pentagon. She's the one that told Trump to fire certain national security advisors, and he's like, okay, and it happens. So she is not just a crazy, can't own a gun because of her mental health history, like Marjorie Taylor Greene likes to say. She truly is advising Donald Trump. And I noticed something about Laura Loomer. She is so Islamophobic, of course, but she was madder than a wet hen that the Syrian president went to the White House. And she blamed the people around Trump. She didn't blame Trump.
That's my next tweet.
Sorry.
Let me show you right here. This is the point Pumps was making right here, you guys. Laura Loomer tweets, "Sometimes I feel like some of the people who work for President Trump deliberately go out of their way to sabotage him. Who said, let's invite the ISIS terrorists to the White House for a photo op in the Oval the day before Veterans Day? How many U.S. soldiers did Giuliani kill?" And here's what Laura Loomer hasn't realized, and a lot of other far-right Jewish groups that are seeking refuge with Donald Trump. He will pick you up and throw you under the bus so fast it'll make your head spin. He is transactional and power-oriented first and foremost. And at the end of the day, he is a white supremacist to his core. Uses Jew jokes for years, had Mein Kampf sitting on his nightstand as reported by his first wife. So to think that you're going to be safe around a man, because he thinks this kind of stuff, like, I'm going to go meet with Kim Jong-un and we're falling in love and we're writing each other's letters. And yeah, I'm going to meet with this former Al-Qaeda and ISIS guy. And he likes to be provocative like that. He thinks it makes him look powerful, and he will throw everything that you've talked about prior to that in the trash. If you think you're safe with this guy, you are a dumb ass, period. And Jewish people that have been browbeating, not all Jewish people, I'm talking about far-right Jewish groups that have been browbeating the Mehdi Hassans, the Zoran Mamdanis, and do not link anti-Semitism to Islamophobia, are making a dire, dangerous, horrible mistake and are only contributing to anti-Semitism by not standing up against all bigotry, because they're all linked.
Well, and you have these same people, Elon Musk, he's a big anti-immigration guy. Meanwhile, he's an immigrant and does Sig Heils. Like, the hypocrisy. And I think it's just super important to remember Trump had the Qatar people on his plane for the first time ever on Air Force One. You had the leaders of Qatar. Well, we know that, they funded Hamas. He doesn't care. He doesn't care how many people's lives are lost. And the people in the cult, like Laura Loomer, are always going to apologize for his behavior. The Epstein files aren't on Trump. They're on Pam Bondi. They will never hold him accountable, ever.
Right. And what I'm trying to get at here is, you have marginalized groups who provided MAGA with the narrative that they were a big tent party.
Right.
And they are all one by one finding out that when you play with white supremacists, you're not going to be the special magical Jewish person that is exempt from this.
No.
You are not going to be the special Kash Patel, a dark-skinned FBI director. Look at how J.D. Vance is already treating his wife. That same destiny and that same dismissiveness and that same level of bigotry and that same lack of loyalty will come for you. And as it relates to far right-wing Jewish groups like AIPAC, they paid $350 million to help get Kanks elected, because they are prioritizing Jewish safety over all other marginalized groups. I would think that if I were in a Jewish group and I saw the arbitrary picking and plucking of brown-skinned people and them being detained, and hearing reports that the majority of these people now, there are more people in custody that have no criminal history than do, that I would be waving my arm saying, hey, this is familiar. This happened before, but they look the other way and they try to scare you that a guy named Zoran Mamdani is going to hurt you, when in fact, he speaks more clearly as an atheist that's never been indoctrinated by any of this to Jewish safety than any Jewish person that I've heard. Which brings me to Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro has been playing patty cake with white supremacists for a very long time. Tucker Carlson is starting to collude with Nick Fuentes, a self-confessed proud neo-Nazi. Tucker Carlson is already starting to see a post-Kanks America, and he is trying to figure out and jockey, and the racism is ripe. And the far-right Jewish people who prioritize their marginalized group over all others are finding out the hard way that these white supremacists are going to kick you to the curb. So put this up, Kylie. Zionist Ben Shapiro and Jake Tapper share a cry over Tucker Carlson interviewing Nick Fuentes, as well as J.D. Vance not doing enough to condemn anti-Semitism on the right. Hassan Piker retweets this and says, guy who spent his entire career, he's talking about Ben Shapiro, making white supremacist arguments, all of a sudden opposes it when Jews are at the precipice of losing white status by the Republicans. And this is a time that everybody is really under attack unless you are a really wealthy, white, waspy man. And that's why it's so important that we never disconnect marginalized groups, because all of them are linked. The rise in anti-Semitism is also right there with the rise in misogyny. It's right there with the rise in racism. But we never prioritize these. If we support Zoran Mamdani, or if we say Benjamin Netanyahu is a war criminal, we get accused of being anti-Semitic. And we all need to have a real conversation about how these far right groups have gone into the belly of the beast. The people who are doing very 1930s Germany style stuff to brown skinned people in this country. And they should be screaming the loudest. Now, there are a lot of American Jews that are organized now that I have heard that are doing the good work and talking about this and exposing this. But the Ben Shapiros, the Laura Loomers, they're all finding out you're not safe. You will always be a underclassman to these white supremacists.
Yeah. And it's really, you wouldn't think it would be that hard for them to learn. But then I look at the Kash Patels of the world, the Candace Owens, the Ben Shapiros. I mean, it's like people, fucking Caitlyn Jenner palling around at Mar-a-Lago. Like, I don't know what it is that these people think they're special and they're not going to have the knives turned. I don't know if it's terminal uniqueness, but it should not be that hard to understand, but it is very hard for people to understand, especially white women my age.
All right, the holidays are rolling in and you have to figure out what to get the male person in your life that has everything. And that's why Pumps and I are buying for our sons True Classics. True Classics started with a simple mission, and that is to bring premium, comfortable clothing to the masses, because looking and feeling great shouldn't come with that designer price tag.
I originally bought True Classic for my sons, but now they've launched a women's line. I can finally shop for myself too. The sweat sets are unbelievably comfortable, and my favorite piece is a tank top. You know how great a good tank top is. It's so easy to dress up or down no matter the time of day.
So listeners, skip the stress and the overpriced designer stuff. Give comfort, give confidence, give True Classic. You can find them at Amazon, Target, Costco, and Sam's Club, or head over to trueclassic.com/IHIP to shop the perfect gifts for everyone on your list.
They're not
I think the far right Jewish groups are seeing in Kanks a man that is willing to do immoral things to Palestinians so that they can graze the land and develop condominiums, and that they themselves want to preach to us about stomping out bigotry when they themselves are very, very, very Islamophobic. And when you separate the bigotry like this, no one is safe. Now they're not safe. Now Ben Shapiro is having a stage 5 meltdown because Tucker Carlson and the Groypers, which is Nick Fuentes' group, are colluding together. Marjorie Taylor Greene is like, we're not doing Israel first anymore. Instead of having moral clarity about this whole thing, like I heard Ro Khanna say recently, that as a party, as the Democratic Party, first and foremost needs to address that Joe Biden gave Benjamin Netanyahu a blank check, and he has done horrific war criminal genocidal things with that blank check. And we need to atone for that as a party. When you don't have moral clarity and you say, okay, and stomping out anti-Semitism is the most important thing in the world, and we don't give a fuck about all of these black and brown immigrant laborers in the United States and the same thing that happening to them right now, you lose credibility. And so now they're all freaking out because they're finding out, I guess they're late to figure it out, that, yeah, the guys who had the MSG Nazi rally and all these boat rallies in Florida with Nazi flags and that stormed the Capitol in Camp Auschwitz t-shirts. Yeah, they're fucking Nazis.
Right.
Doesn't fucking care. And that's who you went to for refuge, and you'll never be safe. Moving along. This was so disturbing. It's taking me several days to be able to discuss it. The New York Times published an opinion piece. And if far right Jewish groups want to say there's been a rise in anti Semitism, I say fair, let's discuss it. But we also need to talk about the rise in misogyny and sexism and how people surrounding this president in his tent are calling for overturning the 19th Amendment. We need to talk about the daily onslaught of attack on women in jobs and demeaning them, that they only have one role, that somehow we have to be codependent and fix the male crisis that they're going through. The pressure that is put on women in this country can only equal to the blame that is put on women in this country. So the New York Times trots out this headline first, and it says, okay, first headline pumps. It said, did women ruin the workplace? And can conservative feminism fix it? And then, of course, they got, just completely ripped. And then they changed the headline to, did liberal feminism ruin the workplace? And if so, can conservative feminism fix it? And I want to just paint the palette here for you guys. That currently, right now, we have a bunch of incompetent, dipshit, fucktwat, beta males ruining our country, masquerading and celebrating their ignorance, their incompetence, and their cowardice on full display. And these two people have the audacity, I guess this was printed from a podcast, to entertain this idea. One's a guy, one's a girl. And that lady that's in there talking about that has a podcast, you think you're going to be safe? You think conservative feminism is going to save you? It is unbelievable to me how mainstream this has become. And I just want to go back to what Mehdi Hassan's point was. Could you imagine if that headline said, are Jews ruining the workplace? You cannot talk that way about half the population. That should not be allowed. In the New York Times, you don't have to publish that. And so we need to start asking ourselves, could you have put the headline up, are Blacks ruining the workplace? You cannot entertain that. You cannot platform that. It's just so stupid. And you give very dangerous people that have stupid ambitions the power to think that's okay. Yeah. And you are incubating an environment that is going to make this world a more violent place for women to live. And I just think that is the biggest disgrace. I can't believe that hasn't been pulled down. I can't believe there isn't a full-throated apology from everybody involved with agreeing to print such a thing. I think it is absolutely a horrible disgrace. And what I have to say to women everywhere is go to work tomorrow and fuck your workplace up. Fuck it up from top to bottom, left to right. Because we know that is such a load of histrionic, ridiculous bullshit. And shame on the New York Times for publishing that on the foothills of Ezra Klein saying that, Democrats should start running pro-life candidates in red states. I don't know why it's okay now all of a sudden to throw women under the bus, but I'm not here for it. Especially when we see toxic masculinity tearing our country down, killing people, both in boats that we don't know if they're guilty and with defunding aid, and propping up a drug addict, Elon Musk, who refuses to go get treatment. No disrespect to any of you all who are in recovery. My husband's in recovery. Pumps is in recovery. But they celebrate the worst part of him. It's just, that made me so sick. It made me so mad.
Well, you know why there's not just an outpouring of criticism is because the women in this country who have grown up in Christian households are used to this, because internalized misogyny is the way you are raised in a evangelical Bible teaching, because women are servants to men. They submit to men. Now, mind you, they could have the most high-paying job. They can work outside the home, take care of the kids, run the carpool, do all that. But at its heart, Christianity is misogynistic, full stop. And that's why I think these, women and other people are just like, yeah, well, that kind of makes sense, because women were put on earth to serve men in Christianity.
And speaking of Christian women, I wanted you to see this video of Erica Kirk at the Patriot Awards. And that's a real thing. They had the Patriot Awards. Melania Trump won the award. This is a real fucking thing. And this is a real video of Erica Kirk. Play the clip.
Make sure that I don't stay silent. I'll keep speaking the truth, no matter the cost. No matter the cost.
Okay. I just thought that everybody needed to see that, because this is like the Tammy Faye-ification of conservative white women. And you see this all the time. She is a trad wife, traditionalist, but now she's running Turning Point. And you see all these influencers online. I'm a trad wife, I'm a Christian mom, but they're full-time influencers. And so I think editorial boards, newspaper boards, if you can't say, are gays ruining the workplace? Are blacks ruining the workplace? Are Jews ruining the workplace? You cannot say, are women ruining the workplace? Women contribute more to the economy than men do, period. We make the majority of the buying decisions. There are more female voters. The reason they're doing that is because MAGA has a woman problem.
Yep.
And the way they want to solve their woman problem is by doing chicken shit articles and podcasts like that, because they're chicken shit cowards. I have had it. I think that is an absolute disgrace. And until these editorial boards and these newsroom boards realize all of these marginalized groups are connected, you cannot abandon one and prioritize the needs of another. It's an incredibly dangerous fool's errand that is only going to end up with the group that you want to protect getting hurt far more than you ever realize, because you refuse, in your myopic vision, in your myopic narcissism, in your myopic selfishness, to see the humanity in other people. And that is such a travesty. And that type of narcissism flourishes in a country like this that values individualism over collectivism. And that is just such a cancer. All right, that's all we have. Pumps model the book. I'm so fucking mad.
I know.
There she is. There's a great woman ruining your workday.
Ruining your workday.
Yeah, fuckers. Subscribe, do all the stuff you're supposed to do. And we'll be back tomorrow to ruin your next workday with a smile on our faces.